I'm Mike Merzenich, and I'm the Chief Scientific Officer of Posit Science Corporation. I'm also a professor, the Francis Sui Professor, at the University of California, San Francisco. I'm a neuroscientist, and as a scientist have directed a laboratory at the University of California for many years. And that laboratory is populated by brain scientists and engineers and medical doctors and psychologists and other professionals of different stripes. And what we've been interested in is the plasticity of the brain in child development and in learning throughout life. Now, what is brain plasticity? Well, brain plasticity is the ability of the brain basically to remodel itself, to change itself as we learn. The baby comes into the world without much ability. If you think of the very limited capacities of a newborn baby, they can't really control their movements. They don't really have much emotional sign. There's really not much evidence when a baby is born of there being a person on board. They have very poor perceptual abilities. They don't see very well. They don't hear very well. They don't have very much of what you would call cognitive abilities. We can't see much evidence of complex thought. And then think forward not too many years to a child of, say, 10 years of age, and think of the enormous changes that have occurred in their performance abilities. Now the brain is an incredibly agile receiver of fine information from vision and from your body and from your ears. You're very accurate. You're very accurate in your listening abilities and in your visual abilities and so forth. Now the brain is actually controlling very complicated movements. The kind of movements that would be required for a child to play an active game like soccer or baseball. And now the brain is actually developed a whole range of special cognitive abilities. It can solve simple math problems. It can do all kinds of complex analysis in the logical domain. And now there's just absolutely no question in a 10-year-old that there's a person on board. There's a personality. There's a person in there that's controlling, in a sense, its own brain's development. And all of that happens through brain change. It all happens through brain plasticity. The brain is continually changing itself. It's continually revising itself by virtue of the interactions of the person, the child, in the world. And sometimes people like to emphasize how these brain plasticity processes are such a big deal in little children, and they talk about being especially powerful plasticity in a baby as opposed to an older individual. Actually, brain plasticity processes are in place throughout a lifespan. And you can change your brain at any age in powerful ways as a function of how you use it. And actually, brain change accounts for every skill and ability you develop throughout a life. And you know that you can develop new skills and abilities at any point in life. So just because you're 70 or 80 or 60 or 99 doesn't mean you can't learn new things. Anyone at any age can learn new things, and those new things, the fact of learning those new things means that you're driving brain change. Now, one of the things we're particularly interested in studying these processes of brain change is not just how they account for your abilities, but what you have to do in driving these processes to maintain your abilities. Now, first of all, think of all of the skills and abilities that you have and use operationally in life. You've developed incredible abilities to control your movements. You can use all kinds of tools. You understand about all kinds of complex machines and instruments. You know how to turn knobs and how to carry tools in your hand and how to control your wrists and your arms and your fingers and so forth, to do umpty-ump things like that you've acquired the ability and knowledge and ability to control and use one at a time. And that they represent individually massive brain change and collectively unbelievable brain change. If I look at the brain as a brain is acquiring the ability to control a tool like a spoon, and think of acquiring the ability to manipulate a spoon as a child, you actually control 14 or 15 or 16 different areas of the brain to change plastically. Now, their change is being driven by the behavior, that is to say, by your practice in using the spoon. And you're actually refining the way you receive information back from the skin, back from receptors that are controlling the postural control and manipulation of the spoon, that relate to aspects of the control of the muscle sequences that are required to manipulate the spoon, that relate to your motor planning as you move under control of vision to load the spoon and to bring the spoon up to the mouth and to unload the spoon and so forth. So you think of something like that as simple, trivial, automatic. Well, it's only simple and trivial, automatic after a heck of a lot of practice. And that practice has led to massive brain change. And that brain change leaves you as the brain as a specialist, a specialized controller for controlling the manipulation of that tool. Now, you've gone through that kind of process as you've acquired skill after skill, ability after ability. You could say that you're accumulated mass in your brain control of thousands and thousands of those skills and abilities, and altogether they define what you are operationally as a human being. Now, what do I have to do to maintain my skills and abilities? In a sense, our brain is demanding, in the skills and abilities that are most crucial to us, it's demanding particular forms of practice. And that's what our training strategy is all about. It's about doing the kind of practice that is required to maintain high ability, to maintain our operations with high precision and high fidelity. Our focus initially in this initial training program is on listening. And what we're trying to train you to be is a more accurate, a more precise, a more careful, a more attentive listener. What does that confer to you? Well, it means that as you receive information from listening, as you listen to a conversation, as you listen to the sound on your television, you should hear information and receive it more accurately. Because it's represented in the clearer form, you should remember it better. And because you're creating representations in your brain that are sharper, that are tuned in a sense, on a level that they weren't before, your ability to use that information for thought, for complex operations, mental operations, should be helped, should be assisted, should be better. And then because you're using this listening information to guide your own talking, you should talk with more fluency. You should talk more sharply and clearly and precisely because you hear yourself better. All of careful listening should confer a whole series of benefits that relate from the brain creating a much more precise representation of what you hear when you talk or as you listen in conversation. And basically that's what we're trying to do. You don't lose your memory because you forget how to remember. You haven't forgotten how to remember. You don't lose your memory because you forget what goes with what in the world. You spent lots of years recording that information and storing it, and it's all in there. It's still in there. You lose your memory because when you listen now, because you've let your skills and abilities slip without knowing it, because what you hear is not represented in your brain very clearly. It's represented in unclear, in a noisy form. And what we're trying to do is help you clarify what you hear, because you can more easily operate with things in memory when they're represented by the brain in a crystal clear form. And that's basically what we're trying to achieve. So that's what this training software is all about. It's about improving the accuracy with which you receive information and thereby with how you remember it and use it, and how you use it to control your movements. That is to say, in the case of listening for language, how you speak, the fluency with which you operate as a user of the language. You should see all of these things, or you might expect all of these things to be improved. And as you think about it, as you progress through this training, you might anticipate improvements in all of these dimensions if you effectively drive these positive changes in your brain. They're really taking on this training with the seriousness of purpose that is being asked of you for the next 30 or 40 hours of your life. Thank you.